everybody. I think I'm your last speaker of the day, so I'm not sure if that's the graveyard shift, but I'm really delighted to be invited to speak here. I'm actually a last-minute stand-in for my colleague Chris, who unfortunately was called away to a very important management meeting in Paris, so he asked me to step in yesterday. So for anyone that's worked with Chris Brown before, he's an amazing speaker, so I hope I can live up to what he was going to do. So I've got about 25 minutes. I'm known for going over, but I will do my very best not to. So I have a colleague at the back of the room who's going to wave at me wildly. And what I'm going to talk about is how you can gain a competitive advantage on LinkedIn. I am an enterprise relationship manager at LinkedIn. I've been with LinkedIn for 2 years, and I've just moved into this role 2 weeks ago. And so I look after a group of clients, some of which are here in the room, some of whom I've met. I've only been in this particular job for 2 weeks, so those of you who I haven't met yet, I hope to meet you after the session. But prior to joining this team, I spent 2 years at LinkedIn helping my colleagues and their clients understand how to build employer brands on the platform. So I'm super excited to be able to share with you now a couple of things. It's going to fall into 3 main areas. The first thing I'm going to talk about is just to give you an update on what's going on LinkedIn and what's important to us right now. The second piece that I'm going to do is talk to you about how we're helping companies do business. And that falls into 3 sort of buckets. How we're helping them to hire, how to market, and to sell. And the third thing I'm going to do is I'm going to give you some examples of how businesses are doing these things really well, obviously with a bit more of a slant on the talent side, to gain a competitive advantage on LinkedIn. So what we're doing, how we're helping companies to hire, market, and sell, and give you some examples of businesses that are doing that really well. Does that sound okay? Cool. Okay, let's kick off. Which one am I looking this way? So what you can see here is my in-map. And what this is a visual representation of my universe on LinkedIn. If I stand over here, you can see that. So the different colours represent the different types of connections that I have. So probably the red is my LinkedIn connections, of which I have the largest group. The pink might be companies that I've worked for before. The green are my university alumni that I'm still connected with. And what this represents is how different people are networking. I've got power players in each of those different groups who are kind of like the hub of my connections. And the way that we network today on social media is so different to the way that we were networking in years gone by. And so as I'm going through my presentation, obviously we're all here to learn how we can use things, all the different companies that have spoken today and LinkedIn for our businesses, but I encourage you to think about how you can use LinkedIn in your personal and professional career, as well as you as a representative of your company. Because we are all members of LinkedIn at the end of the day, and we are a members first organisation. So from all of this insight, from all of these people that I'm connected to, I can gain incredible amounts of insight that make me better at what I do as a business. So how do we think about product development at LinkedIn? Well, it all starts and ends with our members. They are the #1 priority that we have on LinkedIn, and it's really important to us that we provide value to our members to come back every day. We don't necessarily want people to come back for massive amounts of time. We did a big research project last year. We ran a marketing campaign, and we said that we wanted people to come back for 9 minutes a day. That's the optimum, 9 minutes a day. But we want to come back frequently, and we know that they do. So if we can get the value right to our to our members right at the start, and obviously to you as our customers, then we're doing the right thing. And because we've got now 200 million members who are hugely engaged and getting value out of the site, we've got this unbelievable data set which enables us to provide you with insight at relevant times, both to you as an individual member and to your businesses. And then with this huge amount of data, we can then build products and services that are useful to you as a company. So this is how we think about our product development. And so we're always building new products. We've actually gone through recently our most exciting, innovative period of product development that we've had since the site started. And when we think about what are the 3 dimensions of how we add value to our members, this is how we think about it. It falls into these 3 buckets. Firstly, professional identity. We provide the professional profile of record to you. The second piece is around insights. We talked about that huge data set that we have. We can provide information that helps you be better at your jobs and provide it in a really timely way. And we want to do it everywhere. My E is shrunk off the end of my presentation. And this allows us to provide you with a hugely rich and a unique experience. So if I break that down a little bit more, everything that we talk about when it comes to your identity starts and ends with your profile. So viewing profiles is the #1 activity that people do on LinkedIn. So because I've got this amazing audience here, I would be foolish not to try and give you some useful information if I can about how to best leverage your profile. So the profile sits at the heart of everything that I am on LinkedIn. And so if I just point out a couple of things, so going back to what I was saying before about having your personal hat on, it's really important that your profile is complete. I mean, I remember when I joined LinkedIn, and generally speaking, people tend to do one of two things. They dump everything that they have on their CV onto their LinkedIn profile, or they put hardly any information at all. Actually, we are all individuals, we all have personalities, and our personalities should be reflected through our LinkedIn profile. So be thoughtful about the information that you have on there. So a couple of things that I'll point out. So you can see, first of all, I have a picture. So profiles that have pictures are 7 times more viewed than those without. So particularly if you have sources or recruiters using our sourcing tools, or you're using the site to network, it's really important that you have a picture. The second thing is underneath my name, you can see that I have a headline there. So the standard default is it will populate that with your job title, your current job title. But actually, when someone's looking at your profile, it's much more meaningful if they can actually see what's important to you. What is the one thing that you really want to say about yourself? So to me, the one thing that's really important is that I'm educating clients on how to hire and attract the best people using LinkedIn. That is my raison d'etre as a professional, and I want that to be the first thing that people know when they visit my profile. Some of the other cool things to point out is underneath, you can't see this on the bigger picture, but the summary section is also hugely important, where you can actually say a couple of things about yourself right up front that are actually a little bit longer than the headline, which talks about what you might want to engage with people about, what's top of mind for you right now. And right at the end of last year, LinkedIn introduced a new feature to actually add rich media to your profile as well. And you can do that from an individual perspective and as a company. So you can see on here, I've included videos that are relevant to things that I talk about at LinkedIn, decks that I'm sharing with my clients all of the time. And so actually it provides a much richer experience when people come to my profile to network with me. And I was very excited. I was one of those people that got one of those emails last week from our head of product, Deep, saying that I was in the top 1% of profiles viewed. And I've looked at many profiles of people here, and I've seen that lots of people in the room got those as well. And this sort of information, this sort of content is what's going to keep your profile top of mind for people. I thought I'd just point out endorsements as well, because I always get questions about endorsements, so I thought I'd just cover that off. Endorsements is a really cool, light touch way to basically bring recommendations to your profile. So it's no longer do you actually have to go out and ask for those recommendations, but you can still do that. But basically, people can endorse the skills that you already say that you have on your profile. And when people are doing that in aggregate and at volume, it's really clear which skills that you're very strong at. So I've had lots of endorsements for recruitment advertising, employer branding. If I just had a couple, maybe people wouldn't be so sure. But the fact that I've had lots of people endorse me for that shows that I actually have got validated that skill. And the last thing is company updates, personal updates and company updates. These are free. You can use these today. So I posted this update yesterday saying I was really looking forward to talking at this conference. I posted it, I don't know, probably about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And when I took a snag of this, 5 hours later, I had 10 people like it and 1 person comment on it. And so when I send an update, it goes to my 1,200 connections, which is awesome because they know what I'm up to, which keeps me positioned as a thought leader. I'm top of mind. It keeps them remembering who I am. But because those 11 people have commented and liked it, it's also got out to their network of connections. And you can do this free today. You can do it as an individual and you can do it as a company. So I encourage you to do that. So the profile is the heart of the identity piece of how we add value. If I move on to the second value proposition, it talks about insights. So there's a lot of things that we're doing to add value to our members every day, to use that data to provide information in a timely and relevant way. All this data allows you to hire for your business, but also to leverage that data better. And for me, this is one example of how we use that data in the best way. I think this is probably the most underrated but amazing feature that we launched last year, and it's called LinkedIn Today. So I know when I used to go to work and I had my cup of tea in the morning, first thing I'd do is I'd go to my desk after having a brief chat with my colleagues, and I'd spend about the first 10-15 minutes looking on about 5 or 6 of the same websites every day to get my latest news and industry knowledge. I'd go onto BBC, CNN, Mashable, Twitter, 4 or 5 different sites every day. And what LinkedIn's enabled me to do is now just to go to one place. So it's using the information on my profile and all the connections that I'm connected to and the information on what they're sharing to provide me a personalised news feed of content that it's pulling from thousands of sources to ultimately give me my own personal trade magazine. And it's right there on your homepage. You click on it and it opens up into a screen of its own, and it's absolutely phenomenal. So that 9 minutes a day that I talked about, if you just spent that looking at your LinkedIn Today, you'd be kept abreast of like the latest goings on in your industry. So for me, this was my favourite product launch of last year, and that's completely changed the way that I use LinkedIn. In October, we launched a new way for a group of 220 influencers to actually share in long form information about that people might find interesting to their career. So there's an example here of Richard Branson, and Jeff Weiner, our CEO, says this was his favourite product launch of last year. And it enables us to sort of move into that space of content marketing where we're allowing people to be publishers, and we're allowing our members to actually follow people of interest to them to learn more about what's keeping them up at night and what's top of mind. So I mentioned we've got 220 people in the Influencers Programme. It only launched in October of last year. There's loads more planned in the way of content marketing, which we're going to be finding out about how we can share relevant content and information. And somebody like Richard Branson's now got 1.4 million followers since October, which is phenomenal. And you know, just looking at this post that he did, he had 13,000 comments and 5,000 likes. And when Jeff Weiner was sat on stage at our company conference that we had in San Francisco in January, and he talked about this being his favourite product launch of last year, he said that he could never imagine that he would have effectively a blog post on LinkedIn that would be read by 6,000 people. And the last blog post that he wrote was read by 60,000 people. So that's pretty special. And there's going to be a lot more that we're going to be seeing in the area of content marketing and allowing you and your companies to become publishers. And the last piece, just around insights, is how we're helping companies to get that insight in a timely way. And some of you may have seen this already before. So what this is an example of the type of data that we can give businesses to help you understand the footprint that you've got on LinkedIn. So specifically what this is, there's a lot of graphs and numbers and all sorts of things going on there, is we can give you information on the people that are visiting your employees' profiles. So who are they? What companies do they work for? What industries do they work in? What functions do they work in? Which will help you to inform your hiring strategy. Because if you're really making a big push in the sales area, but actually you're only getting engagement in engineering, or actually you're really trying to hire people from the top 4 consultancies, but actually you're getting none of those people visiting or connecting with your profiles, well, then you can work with people at LinkedIn to understand how you can do things differently to try and bolster your people's employee profiles, to increase the activity that your own people are having. And it's this type of data that companies are finding hugely valuable. So if I just move to touch very briefly on our last value proposition, which is everywhere. We want to ensure that all that great profile information and all that great business intelligence follows you wherever you go, because we know that you're not tethered to your desktops anymore. So we're spending a lot of time investing in mobile, smartphones, tablets, and applications. And I remember giving a presentation about a year ago, and I was super excited to tell people that we were getting 10% of our traffic from mobile. And our latest statistic is that we're now getting 25% of our traffic from mobile, which is absolutely phenomenal. And so we have to be very careful and very thoughtful about how we put our information onto mobile and onto tablet, because our members come first, and we don't want to inundate people with information that isn't targeted and relevant to them. So we will see a lot of different product innovation coming this year in this area. But it's not just about smartphones and tablets. For us, when we talk of everywhere, it's about the notion of actually bringing the LinkedIn assets and data and pushing it off of LinkedIn as well through APIs, widgets, plugins, and all of those sorts of things. And there's some examples on the screen of things that the developers can use and take free code, it's all free, off of our developers site and actually put it onto things like your careers website. So things like the Apply with LinkedIn, you can see here, which allows people to apply for your jobs using their LinkedIn profile. Because remember, passive candidates, which is the nirvana that we're all trying to hire, don't have live CVs. Or using things like the follow button, and I'll touch on followers a little bit more later, to actually try and build an audience of people that are engaged with you. And the last one, which you can see on the tablet here, is something that you'll also hear more about this year, which is called Check-in, which is an application which allows you to collect LinkedIn data when you go to events. So to actually take all those leads when you have graduate events or when you have open houses, for example, at your companies, and people come along, and to actually take those leads and track it through pipelining. So all of this is the notion of bringing the LinkedIn data wherever you are. So our 3 value propositions: professional identity, professional insights, wherever you are. And this has enabled us to reach unbelievable critical mass, 200 million members, 2 new sign-ups a second, which is phenomenal when you think that it took us 6 years to get our first 50 million members, and we've got 50 million in the last 6 months, so we're very excited about that. So I'm moving to the second part of my presentation. I thought I was going to tell you about how LinkedIn is changing the way that companies work. And so we're talking a lot more internally about the different things that we can do to help companies to hire, to market, and to sell. And I know we're all here to talk about hiring, and I will come on to talk about that, but we are changing the way that companies do business. And companies are wanting to talk to us about all of these 3 different things. And what's interesting is actually the notion of how companies hire, market, and sell is quite similar. The workflow that you go through to do those 3 things, it's all about finding the right person that you want to engage with, knowing the right thing to say to them, and then finding the right path in. Whether it be for a candidate that you want to hire or for a lead for a sales opportunity. It's all about finding those people, knowing what to say, and then getting the right path in. And because of this amazing profile information, this amazing data that we have, and all of the engagement that's happening on the site, we can help companies to do that. So I'm going to give you some examples of companies that we've been working with and how they're doing this. I'm going to flip the order slightly. I'm going to move higher to the end because that's the juicy bit. And I'll just give you 2 examples, one for marketing, one for selling. So Citi approached LinkedIn because they had a challenge. And the challenge was that they wanted to connect with women in a social media context. And they wanted to be involved in conversations that were focused on business and finance, and ultimately to increase their brand favourability amongst our audience. And they came to LinkedIn because we can help them to do that at scale. We have the audience. We have an audience of aspirational, goal-minded women who want to connect with other women and talk about these sorts of issues. And so they launched the Professional Women's Network, powered by Citi, on LinkedIn. And it's had phenomenal success. It pulls in aggregate of content from multiple different sites. In the first 3 months, we had 43,000 members join up. I'm in the group. I use it all the time to see what is top of mind amongst women that work in business. And in terms of engagement, we're seeing that this particular group is getting 2.5 times more engagement than the standard LinkedIn group. And so this is a way that Citi can put their brand out there to market themselves to LinkedIn members in a way that feels safe, where the women can actually discuss what they want. But Citi's brand has been improving unbelievably, and they've told us that they've had an increase of plus 30% on their brand consideration. So that's an example of how companies are using LinkedIn to change the way they market. In terms of selling, actually one of our most recent products and services that we launched last year was in the sales area. And many companies were talking to us about how they can make their salespeople more thoughtful when reaching out to their leads. LinkedIn wants to kill the cold call. Our customers do not want their salespeople cold calling the prospects. It's not a nice way to be approached, and we know that it's not successful. And so we're working with Eloqua, who are using our Sales Navigator tool, to actually, I should say who Eloqua are. Eloqua are a 400 people organisation based in Virginia who produce software to help marketeers with lead generation and business development. And they have a team of salespeople who use our Sales Navigator tool, of which there's a feature called Team Link. And what it enables them to do is to see within their collective connections of all the people that work there in their connection groups, how they can reach the person that they want to reach. And since Eloqua have been using our Sales Navigator tool to know who to reach, what to say, and how to get to them, they're seeing a 25% increase on their leads. Their sales guys are hitting quota more than they were before, and their deal cycles reduced in size. So we're helping companies do business in a different way based on the information that we're able to provide them. So if I move into the talent space, this is the bit that I suppose we're probably more interested in, but it's interesting to see how the interconnection is very similar, as I said, the workflow that we go through. You're going to have to bear with me as I try and explain this analogy to you. It's something that we've been thinking a little bit about at work as well. We don't have a fancy slide. We built this to try and show you what we're thinking. So if we think about this triangle as being the talent that we're all trying to hire, traditionally, you have at the very top part of this triangle, you've got the top few percent of the people that you're trying to hire into those senior roles, those roles within your business that had the most impact on the company, your CEOs, your senior professionals, your regional leaders, your sales leaders. And traditionally, we would use headhunters to find those people. And they tend to be low volume, high quality, but high cost. And that's that top bit just there. And as times changed, let's think back to manufacturing days. We'd have a lot of people that would sit at the bottom side of this triangle, and that would be like our blue-collar workers, and that's the largest group of people that we tend to hire for. So that might be, like I say, in the manufacturing, that big bulk of people. In retail, they might be people like your people that work on the checkout, etc. And traditionally, we might have done newspaper advertising, that shifted to job boards, and they tend to be the large population that are high volume, low cost, and low quality. And those people probably have the smallest impact on your business. Whether you have a good person or a great person in those sorts of roles probably only makes a difference of about 5% on your company. And what's changed is that space in the middle has grown. The industry has changed. It's become very fragmented. And what LinkedIn's done is we've actually been able to fill that mid-market space. And that's why a lot of companies, 15,000 customers, are using us right now to help them to hire passive candidates at scale to fit in that middle space. And so as the industry's changed, we've been very grateful for the engineering support that we've had and for our members who are hugely engaged in coming back to the site to enable us to build tools to help you hire to fill that mid-market area, which enabled you to connect talent with opportunity at huge scale. So if I give an example of a customer that's using LinkedIn to hire, Next, the retailer, gave us an example recently of where they wanted to hire a senior swimwear designer. And you think, well, how many senior swimwear designers can there be out there? Apparently there's 245, wouldn't you know? So they were looking to hire a senior swimwear designer. 60% of our audience are truly, truly passive, as in gainfully employed other people. Another 20% are kind of tiptoeing around, maybe they'd be open to opportunities. But how do they reach that swimwear designer who's working at another retailer or another organisation? And they found Simon. And Simon was a true passive candidate. He was not looking for work at the time. Maybe he was open to having a conversation, but he was really absolutely fine, thank you very much. So we're moving away from the post and pray traditionally that a lot of companies would do, whereas you put a job out there, someone we would hope, like Simon, would come and answer our call, and that would be that. Unfortunately, that's not the way it works these days. So we're able now to track, manage and nurture people like Simon and kill those spreadsheets that we know that recruiters were using to try and manage their pipeline of talent. For people like Simon, who may not be ready now to move, but they may be ready in the future. So LinkedIn developed a tool which kills these spreadsheets that recruiters were telling us we're using, which had like amazing color-coded systems of this person will be ready then, and this person's got this skill, and actually collaboratively find a way to bring all of those leads for people like Simon into one place that they could actually be tracked, managed and nurtured moving forward. And that was Talent Pipeline. And many of you may know Talent Pipeline. 50% of our customers have activated Talent Pipeline. And it's enabled people to actually track people like Simon who may not be ready now, because the bar to influence Simon to take a move within his career right now is set a lot higher. You have to influence him multiple times and in multiple touch points before he's going to go, yep, I am ready to speak to you, Mr. Recruiter. That would be great. And so now what we can do is we can put people like Simon, and also think about all those people that were the runners-up in your hiring, the people that didn't quite make it, that were really, really great, but you just don't have 2 roles for them right now, but you want to hold on to them for the future. We've all said it, oh yeah, I'll keep you on file. We don't keep them on file, and we forget about them because that's human nature. Now we can tag and track and make notes and diarise to contact these people again, so we can continue to engage with them as we move forward. So that's Talent Pipeline. So I'm going to move into the final section of the presentation. I told you I'll give you some examples of customers that are doing this really, really well. We already talked about Nexts. But now if I flip the dial a little bit, and I'm going to ask you this question. How many people dream about working at your company? Do you know? Most people don't. And so how do we know how attractive our company is to the outside world? On LinkedIn, we've got 200 million people, 200 million members who are all doing different things online, and from that we can gain a huge amount of information. Toby Barnes, who's the global head of sourcing at Rolls-Royce, asked us that question. He wanted to know how many engineers actually were attracted to working for their business, because Rolls-Royce are building jet engines, they're leaders in clean technology, they're building submarine components, and they need to attract the very best engineering talent. And they need to be top of mind for engineers when they're thinking about their next career move. And Toby wanted to know, as many of our other customers did, how attractive their brand is, how many people dream of working at their company. And we're now able to tell them, which I think is very, very cool, because before it was a lot of finger in the air stuff, and people would spend a lot of time investing in their employer brand, rolling out new EVPs, and now we actually know the answer to that question. So LinkedIn has developed something called the Talent Brand Index, which has enabled companies like Rolls-Royce to understand the answer to that question and then build into their sourcing strategies ways to actually engage in the right way with those people. And I'm very grateful to Toby, because he's allowed us to actually share their private data with you so I can use them as an example. So the way that we are able to measure the Talent Brand Index, which is effectively how favourable your company is, and there's a few different things that we do. First of all, we look at your reach. We look on LinkedIn how many professionals are familiar with your company. And for Rolls-Royce, that was 745,000 members. And we know that they're familiar with the Rolls-Royce brand because they're viewing employees' profiles and they're connecting with their employees. So we know they're at least familiar with the brand. And then we take another number. We take their talent brand engagement. And then from there we can see how many people are actually interested in working for them as an employer. And for Rolls-Royce, that number was 116,000. And again, how do we know that they're actually interested in working for them? Well, they're engaging with jobs, they're following their company, and they're researching their company. So we've got 2 good statistics there, and we basically divide one by the other, which all looks very weird when it's all skewed like that. And effectively, the talent brand index that Rolls-Royce has is 16%. So 16% of their audience that was familiar with that brand had actually taken the next step to engage with them. So that's their talent brand index, which is interesting in and of itself, because it gives you a sense of the size of the audience that they've actually got to engage with. But actually, it's much more interesting when you can actually benchmark that against your peers. So when we showed it to Toby, he said, that's all very well, but how am I doing against Airbus, BAE, Jaguar Land Rover? And actually what we can see is they're 2 out of 7 in the rankings against their peers. So they're doing a really, really good job, but there is more to go in terms of their improvement. But we can take it one step further. What interests and drives an engineer to work for Rolls-Royce is going to be very different to what interests and drives a salesperson. So Toby wanted to know, okay, so our overall, our brand, we're ranked fairly well. We know we're fairly favourable. That's a really good sign. But how are we doing by functional area? And how are we doing in different geographies? And we're able to give him that type of information. So we can say you're super strong in the engineering space, but actually, in terms of the sales and business development area, you probably need to do a little bit more work in getting your brand out there. And in different geographies, you're super engaged with professionals in India, but actually in the US, where you're actually trying to grow, for example, people are less familiar with your brand. So that information can then help inform his talent strategies. We've had a really, really good relationship with Rolls-Royce for the past 2 years, and we've developed with them a program of activity that's allowed them to showcase their brand across LinkedIn. And these are just some of the examples of things that they're doing. They're using video. They're leveraging all of the employees that work for them and actually showcasing the job opportunities they have on their profiles. They've got all of their jobs on LinkedIn, so they can actually be present and targeted on the homepage of relevant engineers, etc., when they visit linkedin.com. And they're using updates. They're sending company updates, not only on recruitment, but on all the different things that they're talking about. But Toby wants to know if it's actually working. So what we're able to do is actually track over time. And we can see here the last 6 months of activity that actually it's up and to the right. So Toby can feel really comfortable that the investments that he's making, not only on LinkedIn but off, are actually working for him. So thank you, Rolls-Royce, for allowing us to share that information. So I'm going to move into my second and my final story for you. And I've got a sign going, go quicker, so I'm going to go quicker. This is my final story. I've been working with Unilever, and I'm going to skip on very quickly. Unilever have really embraced followers as part of their strategy. We have done a lot of research, and we know that 70% of people that follow your business will be open to career opportunities. And so Unilever have set themselves an absolutely massive goal to become from a 47 billion euro business to an 80 billion euro business, and to do it by reducing their environmental footprint, which basically means they need a different people strategy, and they need to hire different people moving forward that's going to be in line with their goals. And what they've done is that they've identified 3 different target audiences that are going to help them win in that goal: sales, marketing, and supply chain. And so we've worked very closely with Unilever to come up with a strategy that's very targeted to those 3 audiences, that's going to allow them to build their followers and engage with them over time, so they can start pipelining talent in those areas into their business. If we have a look at some of the things that they've done, Paul Maxon, who's a global resourcing director there, really believes in the value of their employees and also the company presence that they have. And just to give you an example of one thing that they've done, is that they have different careers information that's served up to people in marketing versus people in supply chain. So they can have different messages, different videos, different calls to action, which may inspire a marketing person over a supply chain person to come and work with them. Different banners, different recruitment messages, and relevant jobs. And that goes through all of their different marketing. So back to company updates again, a free thing that they can send out. They've really embraced them. They can send out updates to a very specific and niche group of people, so different messages to salespeople versus supply chain people, because I'm less interested in what's happening in the supply chain world versus I am in marketing. And here's just an example of one that they send specifically to an India group, so they can start to segment the audience of followers that they have and only send out messages to that group of followers that are relevant to that particular need that they have right now, which means they can build long-term relationships to them. And quick flick to the results, super impressive. So the 3 audiences we've been tracking over time, in 10 months we were able to double the number of followers in each of those 3 audiences. And Paul tells us that he's getting much more pipeline coming through in those 3 markets and much higher quality candidates as a result. So that's me. I hope you found that interesting. Just to recap, the 3 things that I really wanted to share with you today was just some background on what's interesting happening within the LinkedIn universe, how we're helping companies to hire, market and sell, and just to give you examples through Next, Rolls-Royce and Unilever as the companies that are doing this really well to gain an advantage on LinkedIn. So I'll be around afterwards if you have any questions, and I'd love to talk to my clients if you're here. Thanks very much.